Hey everybody, Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, bringing you all a review roundup episode this week. No full episode of the Genre of Your Life podcast this week, unfortunately. Work schedules, busy calendars got on the way, but again, have no fear. The boys and I will be back next week with the full episode of the podcast. But in the meantime, I wanted to put out this review roundup / audio newsletter for you guys. Again, as always, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast platform of choice. We also have the full audio show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Whether you're on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, subscribe, follow, please rate us, give us a review. We want to hear from you guys. You're liking the show, not liking the show, neutral. What are you loving about it? What are you not liking about it? Your feedback means the world to us. We really value that. Again, like I said, we had a great year of 2023 thanks to you all. But again, don't be shy. We want to hear from you all. So again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, follow, review. Again, your support means the world to us. And again, we want to thank you again for the ongoing support. Like I said, guys, it truly does mean the world to us. So thank you so much. Alrighty, on this week's review roundup episode, I got two reviews for you guys this week. I have Jason Statham and David Ayer's new action movie, The Beekeeper. I also have Emma Stone and Nathan Fielder's new show, The Curse, which is now streaming on Paramount Plus / Showtime. I have a lot to say about that one, but in due time, I'll start with the movie of the week this week, which is, again, it is the David Ayer directed, Jason Statham starring action film, The Beekeeper. I was supposed to go to the screening for this last week, but again, like I said, busy calendar, conflict schedules got in the way, so I had to miss out on it. But saw it over the weekend. Again, I wanted to see it a lot because, as you've probably heard on this podcast multiple times, David Ayer is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I love End of Watch. I love Fury. He's written Training Day, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, in my top 10. Wrote the first Fast and Furious. Movies like Sabotage, Harsh Time, Street Kings, and Bright. Also, again, part of me ramble on about this all the time on the show is that I love the 2016 version of Suicide Squad. I really do. I know it's one of the most critically and fan despised movie. It just worked for me for some reason. But unfortunately, as we all know, if you don't know, that wasn't really David Ayer's true vision of the movie. Because of how Deadpool did and how Batman v Superman did not do well, unfortunately. The studio kind of changed everything last minute and kind of recut it, kind of reshot a lot of stuff. But again, it still worked for me as someone who likes that movie a lot. With my guilty pleasures, I'll defend that movie no matter what. But I would love to see David Ayer's true version of the movie because, like I said, from Fury, End of Watch, Sabotage, Street Kings, Harsh Times, he's a great filmmaker. Again, I love Fury. I love End of Watch. Again, I also love Bright, and again, another one that wasn't kind of critically received well, but it worked for me as well. So I'm a big fan of this guy as a filmmaker. He's very real in his interviews, and open about his filmmaking technique and styles. So I would love to see his version of Suicide Squad if it ever comes out, the Ayer cut as they're calling it. But who knows? Fingers crossed. But we'll see if it happens or not. But yeah, Beekeeper was coming out. I'm like, cool, David Ayer, one of the Ayer filmmakers, Jason Statham. Love seeing him kick ass and all those things. But if you probably heard our Expendables 4 review a couple of months ago, me and Nick tore that thing to shreds. And funny enough, a movie that we both didn't like whatsoever is our highest rated out of theater reaction on YouTube with over 30,000 views, which is crazy to think. But hey, you know what? We'll take it. But yeah, anyways, the Beekeeper, basically, Statham is, like I said, he's a beekeeper, and one day someone very close to him is betrayed and murdered, so he has to go on a revenge and figure out who took what from this person and how he can figure out where can he get vengeance and justice from. And it's the Hitman Underground assassin movie that's been done 100 times. John Wick, Equalizer, all those Liam Neeson movies. It's been done 100 times before. So you're kind of like, all right, I've heard that premise before. And I'll tell you what, this is definitely David Ayer. This is David Ayer trying to make a John Wick / Equalizer film. There's a lot of similarities of tone and action and kind of narrative choices. So if you're a fan of those movies, this is for you. I'm a fan of those movies, so definitely up my alley, for sure. So but it's definitely nothing new or original to like kind of like rave about. But if you are a fan like the old school 90s 2000s action movies with a touch of like Equalizer and John Wick, this is the movie for you for sure. Again, too, this is David Ayer's first theatrical release since 2016, I want to say, with Suicide Squad. Bright went to Netflix, and that tax collector movie that I don't think I even saw personally. Maybe I watched it. I just can't forget about it. So maybe I don't love all his movies, but that was kind of weird because of COVID and things changing with like production people, whatever. But this is his first theatrical release in Suicide Squad 2016, and unfortunately, because that movie, even though it did commercially did really well, there was a lot of baggage. There was a lot of kind of like what the hell happened kind of thing. And I think a lot of the blame went on him. And if you watch the not Hot Ones, wrong podcast, the real ones with John Berthnall, one of my favorite actors, he had David Ayer on for like an hour and a half talking about his career, life, what happened with Suicide Squad. And it was a very, very open and very honest conversation. So you can watch it. I highly recommend it because David Ayer was very open about like what happened. He goes, "Hey, listen, like, Deadpool did really well. The studio did not test Batman v Superman, and because of how BVS was received negatively by critics and a lot of fans, minus our own very own Nick Johnson, who loves that movie, it was like, what's gonna happen next? So unfortunately, it was the victim of the next release was Suicide Squad back in August of 2016. So the studio goes, cool, we're going to reshoot, recut everything, and make it more fun, like Guardians of the Galaxy, and make it like Deadpool, because Deadpool came out a month prior to Batman v Superman 2016, back in February, and was a huge thing, as we all know. It was the biggest thing ever, biggest rated R movie opening of all time. So he kind of got screwed over by, quote-unquote creative decisions, stuff like that. So I'm glad to see he had another theatrical release with this coming out on the big screen, because this could have been a Netflix or Amazon Prime movie, because Amazon, it's MGM, Amazon movie, but I'm glad that they pushed this out to be a theatrical release. It's fun. It's over the top. The action is entertaining, but like I said, it's nothing new or special. It doesn't reinvent anything in terms of the genre at all, but it's a fun, definitely a throwback to old school action films, and kind of like a homage to John Wick and Equalizer movies. Like I said, Statham is fun to watch. I'm starting with the good as always. He's fun to watch. I appreciated that all the action was a lot more hand-to-hand combat instead of like kind of gunplay or gun fu as they call it in the John Wick universe. A lot of it was Jason Statham kind of hand-to-hand kind of combat, fist fighting, stuff like that. And I was like, okay, cool. We're not doing the typical pow 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 gunfight hitting whatever. This was definitely him kind of doing more like physical fight, like fist fight stuff. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. I respect that because I love John Wick movies. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. Probably the best action franchise of the past 20 years, if you ask me. But I love the whole kind of like gunplay, gunfight, gun shootout action. But you know what? To take a step back, I was like, I do appreciate the kind of like smaller technique of the hand-to-hand combat, stuff like that, kind of like in your face, kind of like Jason Bourne in a way. There's a lot of action choreography that I movies now where I'm like, oh man, that looks so bad. It looks kind of fake. If you hear Chad Stahelski, the director of the John Wick movies, or David Leitch, who did Bullet Train, Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, he also did the first John Wick as well. You can tell like this looks edited terribly. This looks terrible. And I thought the action choreography and fight scenes were done very well. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm with this. I'll give a shout out to Emmy Raver Lampman. She really carries this movie. She has a lot to do in this, and her character, who's a CIA agent, basically is definitely a crucial part of the movie. Again, not spoilers. There's something that happens to her that kind of sets her on the path of like what she wants to accomplish. Similar to Jason Statham's character too. Like they both have their ways of getting justice. Some of them are morally correct, and others, not so much. It's kind of like the law. Like where does your jurisdiction end? And it's like her as a CIA operative, and Statham as this kind of hitman and retired hitman assassin kind of guy. They both want the same thing, but seeing two different perspectives and angles of where they're coming from is very interesting. I thought she was very good. Not familiar with her work as an actress before. I thought, she's doing a good job of kind of blending the fun and seriousness. of it all throughout the movie. And I was like, you know what? I thought when she was on screen, she had a huge screen presence of like she commands the screen, she commands the scene. She wants to kind of like put her have her voice heard. And I was like, you know what? As an actor, I appreciate seeing that from an actor. I appreciate that because they kind of like know what they want to accomplish, and they kind of really kind of taking the script as their own. Uh, you know, I much as I kind of ratted on Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm a big Josh Hutcherson fan. I grew up this guy from Kicking and Screaming, Zathura, let's go Hunger Games, obviously. I like that he was a villain. I haven't seen him play a villain really, I don't think ever. He plays a really good kind of nepo baby tech douchebag very well. Again, it's fun to see him back in mainstream movies again. I feel like since Hunger Games, he wasn't really doing much. Maybe that could have been his own choice, but I think with Five Nights at Freddy's now this, I like seeing him in more kind of quote unquote mainstream studio movies like this. So it was fun to see him kind of play a villain, but he's definitely playing like a nepo baby douchebag tech guy, which is kind of definitely fun to watch. You know, but again, trying to keep this spoiler free. I really like how this movie kind of shows and explores that kind of metaverse in terms of like how easy it is to get information, how gullible people are. Like, oh no, I have a virus on my thing, or my credit card's been hacked, or what's my social security number? Like, unfortunately, even the era of cybersecurity and the advancement development of that, we're definitely still seeing a lot of people just kind of gullible or kind of just like easy to believe fraud. And this movie definitely explores of like how quickly our information can be leaked, exposed, exploited, and or we're left with nothing. So I was like, wow, I kind of appreciated that. It is slight commentary on that. I'm like, oh yeah, because if you don't pay attention or have good passwords or have good internet or getting good cybersecurity, stuff is out there for anyone to get it. And I thought that the way it's introduced in this movie and how it kind of sets up the rest of the movie, I was like, oh, cool. I like that. I'm with that. It was to me, it was very interesting and very cool approach to like uh, the overall story, the overall mission that Statham goes on in his quest for revenge. Like the camera work a lot, actually. There's some really cool shots that David Ayer and his cinematographer chose to establish certain locations, these kind of like high intense scenes. There's a cool scene where Statham was in this kind of like this office building. There's really cool like lights behind him. The coloring is very kind of like it's very purple, it's very blue, but you don't feel like you don't feel distracted whatsoever. You do feel like the camera still is on Statham, and the colors kind of add kind of more seriousness and kind of like the focus on Statham whatsoever. But even like other office buildings or even kind of like different set locations, like the coloring, the shots that he chooses from to like kind of like establish a shot and see where we are with the characters I thought was very interesting. And I was like, oh cool, I like that they're playing with different colors, like that they're playing kind of with like the different tones and ambiances of different shades, different kind of like mood stuff like that. And I was like, oh, good for David Ayer and his cinematographer, kind of taking that kind of like artistic and creative approach. Although it's not really an quote unquote an original, it's not a movie that's based on any kind of IP or pre-existing material. It is a quote unquote original movie, original script, but like I said, it's not really nothing original that we've seen before in other action movies like that, like this. But I really do appreciate that Amazon and MGM it was committed to giving this a full on theatrical release. Again, with the era of streaming still kind of the rising, and the more people more comfortable staying at home watching TV shows and movies, whatever. This really could have been Amazon Prime streaming movie, like whatever. But I'm really glad that I saw this in theaters because, I didn't love the movie, but I still like that it shows the commitment from the studios, like a big studio like Amazon and MGM, still fully committed to the theatrical experience and still giving this a wide release. Not limited, 1 week only, 2 week only thing. They put this movie out in all major theaters, IMAXs, premium large formats, Dolby, Cine Capri, whatever. And I was like, to me, I'm like, cool. It's very rewarding, even though for a not original, somewhat decently budgeted movie, MGM Amazon still shows their commitment to theatrical wide release. And I'm like, cool. I like that. It makes me kind of very hopeful and very optimistic for the future for the other movies. So they did the same thing with Saltburn and Air, but I'm glad that there's still a trend that they're still committing to and still very investing in this. So I was like, cool. As someone who loves movie theaters, loves the theatrical experience, I felt really at ease that they still commit to these types of movies for the big screen. And I was like, hats off to both Amazon and MGM for that. So that's all I was gonna say in terms of like it's pros. Again, as much as I love just Statham doing his thing, I love David Ayer. I had a lot of fun with this movie, but like I said, I have a lot of cons to go over, unfortunately. And the first one I'll start with is that the story, like I said, nothing original, but it's a bit convoluted and silly at times. It gets a little ahead of itself and kind of has a hard time not trying to be corny or cliche, like the kind of throwback to those old school action movies. It starts off really strong. I'm not gonna lie, it starts off really strong and promising, but I will think like the middle part, like the second act, gets a little choppy at times. I'm like, oh, cause it started off so well. Like, hey, where we going with this? How you set it up, and then it just kind of just gets a little choppy, and then it kind of finds its way back in the third act or the last part of the movie. But like I said, it starts off strong, but the story could have been, I guess, maybe more executed a bit more explained a bit better, because it gets a little choppy or kind of just like a little all over the place at times. There's some scenes. Okay, there's some scenes too that I noticed right away. Like the first maybe 20 minutes, I was like, "Huh, is that a character choice?" It's like there's some scenes where it's just dialogue. There's no action, nothing kind of crazy going on. We're just two different characters. There's two heavy dialogue scenes of two different characters just talking, and like they'll be talking like this. They'll be talking like, "Yeah, this happened. This happened. Okay," and then this happened. Like with a long pause between them talking, or if I said, "Hey, how are you today? How's your week going?" Pause. 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 Oh, it's going very well. And I was like, what? And I thought it kind of threw me off a bit, where I was like, was that a screenplay? Was that a script? Was that a note by the director? Was that a note by the writer? Like, was that in the script at all? Was that a character decision? But it happened, I want to say, two more times. And I was like, huh, is that a narrative choice? Is that a storytelling choice? Because I was like, okay. It felt really weird. And I noticed it right away when it first happened, the first like 20 minutes of the movie. And I was like, okay, I guess we're going with that. But yeah, like I said, I don't know why that was a thing or why was that included, but yeah, it happens, unfortunately. So I was like, all right. So if you see that, if you notice that, maybe just me, maybe I kind of like read that, maybe I kind of like took that differently. But I saw a couple times where I was like, all right, I guess. Jeremy Irons, top tier, amazing actor. I think he's a very underrated Alfred to Ben Affleck's Batman. Great actor. He is horribly miscast in this. He does not add anything, and it's to this, and it kind of feels like he's doing this for the paycheck. Because I'm like, dude, I've seen you in some like, amazing movies. What this has to be like paying for your mortgage or just paying for like a vacation or whatever, because he looks checked out and doesn't really add anything in terms of performance or kind of like depth of character. This role could have been played by like anyone, not even like a high profile actor. It could have been like someone who's kind of like a seasoned, veteran actor, or like no one's like, or not a big name. But I'm like, cool. You have Jeremy Irons. I was like, all right, that's a pretty good actor. He's the original Scar, obviously, and he's the villain in the third Die Hard. He's a lot. He adds a lot to his roles, but to me, I'm just like, he's kind of like sleepwalking a lot in this. So I'm like, there's a few scenes where like he's definitely trying to like kind of like be kind of like this certain way, but I don't think he was given anything, any good or any real good material, and he seemed just bored. Like the whole time he was like, okay, I'm going to do this and don't do that. I tell you this and this is why that. Like the way he like when he was like trying to express or show like anger or frustration, it was very dull and very monotone. I was like, yeah, this seems like he was kind of checked out from the beginning or doesn't really believe in this material that he was given. So I was like, okay, I guess we're going with this, I guess, question mark. And he tries to explain like what beekeepers, I guess no spoilers, obviously, tries to explain what beekeepers are to like a team of like, evil henchmen or whatever. And explanation is very odd. It doesn't really add anything or help explain anything. It could have been a script thing too, or a directional choice. But like the way he kind of explains it is so like lackluster and so uninteresting. I'm like, you're supposed to like tell these guys who you're up against and why Statham is so why he's so like the way he is, like why he's so dangerous, and it just comes off like okay, it's that's it. All right, it didn't seem menacing or kind of cynical at all. You're like, all right, it is what it is. There's an actor in this who I thought, I mean, I don't want to talk badly about this guy. 'Cause he could be great in other things. But Bobby Nadiri, who plays a CIA agent to he plays the CIA partner. He plays the CIA operative. He's a partner to Emmy Raver Lampson's character, and this guy has no emotion. Oof! Like whenever he's on screen, I was like, do you even want to be in this movie? Like he's monotone throughout, and there's a scene where like he's being held at gunpoint. He goes, "I have family. I have family. Don't shoot." And he says it like that, and I'm like, wouldn't you want to be like, don't shoot me, please? I have a family. Like, show kind of emotion. He was like the whole movie, he's like, okay, let's go over there. Oh, the CIA operative's here. Let's call him. Okay, it's your turn. Call me back. And that's his entire performance. And I was like, dude, what you want to be here? Like, show some emotion, man. And again, it was just like, okay, we're going there. We'll be in 5 minutes. I'll see you there. Cool. Yeah. I know you telling me. Not a good idea. And that's his entire performance. And watching this in my head, I was like, I gotta write this down after the movie because I'm like, bro, what? Like, I just didn't get. I don't know. Like, I mean, if you were being held at gunpoint in a movie or in real life, you would be like, show some kind of like emotion or kind of like, please, like, please have mercy, whatever. I have a family, don't shoot. Like that's how he sounded. I'm like what? It's so bizarre, and I don't know if that was how he was written or that's how he interpreted the character. That was an acting choice, whatever. But he really gives one of the worst performances I've seen by an actor in a long time or ever. And I'm like, wow, like maybe he didn't want to be there. This was also for the paycheck, whatever. But man, he had really hit him and Emmy's character had they had no chemistry. I did not buy them as partners at all. And the whole time I'm like, dude, you're in this movie, man. Show some kind of like range or kind of emotion. Don't be monotone the entire time because it's very like you're not adding anything. You're making the movie even more boring. But like, yeah, I don't know. That's how I saw it as character and his just overall his performance. For a rated R movie, there's not a lot of blood. This is more of a nitpick, obviously. You compare like a John Wick or Equalizer or whatever, or there are rated action movies. I was kind of surprised. I was like, for a rated R action movie, there's not a lot of blood, quote unquote blood, or kind of like typical stuff. But in the third act, there definitely is the final like shootout, final like big action piece. There's a lot of it, but I was like, I was kind of surprised that they didn't really like make it like the total like typical rated R action blood violent movie. It was kind of more subtle at times up until the third act. So I was like, interesting. I wonder why that was like maybe more because of like a direction, maybe a choice from David Ayer, from his stunt team, his visual effects team. But I was like, I just kind of like thought like, compared to other rated R action movies like this, the blood is very tame at times. I was like, okay. I think this movie, what to me, I think the biggest con I had with this movie, unfortunately, even though I did have fun with it, it was that I think the movie moves too quickly in terms of pace. It doesn't really establish anything, kind of jumps right into everything. Like the inciting incident happens, boom, 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 you're there. It's like there's not a lot of time to like kind of develop and build up like Statham's character, his backstory, or like kind of like where he's at mentally, and it just kind of starts and it's like cool, and here's the movie. And I think a lot of people wouldn't mind with that, but I do think the movies like this do deserve some kind of like time to breathe or some kind of good like build up. Like again, I hate using this example again and again, but like John Wick, for example, the first one, boom, 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 and then boom, like all that build up. Even the second, third, and fourth movies, like there's still a bunch of build up, kind of like in between enough to like kind of keep it engaging. Or Equalizer, of course, the first one, a great example. Starts off, where he's at, who he is, bum, 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 and it gave us enough time to like breathe and be with the character first. And then compared to this movie where it's like, okay, you see Statham, Something happens right away. Boom. On his mission for quest on his quest for vengeance and rate and justice. Like, okay, it's moved really quickly, and I think the pace kind of hurt this movie in a way of like, you guys have let breathe, let us be invested first, and then go from it. It just kind of felt like you kind of throws us in there like, here you go, action movie, boom, 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 boom. And that's again, I don't want that, entirely, but it's just like it just would have been nice to have like some time to breathe. Um, once Statham does his kind of like his first hit, like it just again like I could have used some backstory, some kind of story beats first to get to where we are now. But once he does his kind of first hit or first mission, whatever, things kind of go and go and go. And there's not a lot of time for him to. It's kind of like once he does his kind of first hit or mission, like I said, he's already like most wanted man, top of like the most wanted list. CIA knows who he is. They go after him. And it's like, or he's wanting to be caught right away. And you're like, there's no suspense or like thrills of them trying to figure out who he is. It's like boom, 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 boom. Go get him. All right, this, that, bah. It's like, don't you want to like have it breathe? Don't you want to have it like kind of just like this like naturally build it up to the like boom, 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 boom. I think this movie could have stopped and like breathed a little bit and then worked away into like kind of like figure out who he is. Because right away he's already top of the, again, like I said, he's top of the most wanted list. He's already like CIA already knows like he's on like the most like most dangerous man in the area now. It's like, oh, okay, it's fine, but there should have been more time to let this breathe and kind of just like get there before just throwing it all in at once. There's times where it just needs to breathe a little bit, let it sit. And there are scenes that kind of just feel necessarily long or a bit dragged out. This is only an hour 45-minute movie. It's not too long, but there's scenes where it kind of makes the movie kind of feel longer than 2 hours. And it's just like I think a lot of it comes from the pacing, like the kind of uneven pacing of the movie. Another actor that I will say I'm trying to find his name right now, but he plays the deputy director of the CIA in this. And he looks so bored. I'm telling you, this movie, like, there's a lot of actors like that just look so like bored out of their mind, or is it kind of them just doing this for the paycheck? Don Gillett, he's a deputy director of the CIA. My man looks so bored the entire time. He's called into the CIA office, gets information, goes, okay, what do we know? Okay. But why? But how do you know that? Okay. And then leaves. That's it. Like that, and that happens in person, on a Zoom call, and then towards the end too, it was kind of like a big reveal of what happens to first certain characters. And I'm like, wait, huh? It's like he gets the information, he's there, and he's like, okay, but very kind of gets a little combative, kind of wants to rebuttal with his CIA operatives, and then leaves. And people were laughing what happened the second time. They're like, someone in the audience goes, he did it again. And it was very bizarre. Again, that could have been a direction note, that could have been in the script, but he just looks very bored. He looks bored out of his mind and has like no sense of urgency. He's just like, okay. But and then he was kind of like disappointed with his operatives finding information. Like, well, you know that. Okay, I'm leaving. It's like, what? Like, you're supposed to be the deputy director. Like, have some kind of like some kind of involvement or kind of like involvement to the story or involvement to the case whatsoever. But there's none of that. And I was just like, huh. I think after seeing the movie, I was like, a lot of actors look bored out of their minds in this, or they were given no solid direction, or the script was just like not giving anything. And they're like, cool, we'll just take it in and go with it. And it just doesn't really seem well developed in those characters. Their dialogue, I said earlier in the beginning of this review, is that it doesn't feel a little ccorny and cheesy at times. A little too much of the throwback aspect to it, and kind of like, like honey or this or the hive. It's like, okay, we know, we get it. It's a little trying too hard to be a throwback to those old school action movies. And to wrap it up too, the ending feels really a bit rushed, and the way it just ends, it ends really abruptly, and you're kind of just like, huh? And when it ended for my audience, a lot of us were like, wait, what? That's how it ended? Like, it just ends, and there's no kind of like, it just, something major happens at the end of the movie, a huge, thing happens, and I kind of want to see what happens next, or like what the consequences were following that. But it just kind of ends abruptly. Like, you see something and then it goes ends and then it's credits. And like I said, a lot of people in the audience were kind of like laughing and like, wait, that's how it ended? And I heard someone literally say like, well, that's it? Question mark. The ending was very, as edited, very, very weird too. Like either like they didn't have an ending to begin with, or they didn't have an ending at all, and or they didn't know how to or they didn't know how to end it, and it was just kind of like, well, here it is. And a lot of people in my audience were like, well, that was kind of weird, but it's like, all right. But like I said, if you're a fan of those old school 90s 2000s movies, action movies, this is for sure up your alley. If you like the Equalizer, the John Wicks, well, not as good as John Wick if you ask me, or even Equalizer, or like the Liam Neeson kind of movie, stuff like that, this is definitely for you. Definitely up your alley. Don't expect much going in. I think I did a little bit. Like, oh yeah, because I love how much I love David Ayer and I love Statham, but it's fun. I had a fun time. I wouldn't rave about this movie. If you heard my review, I wouldn't rave about this movie. I would kind of go, recommend this one to like a lot of people. But if you do like action movies, like a good time at the movies, definitely for you. I'd give this really a solid 3 out of 5. So it would definitely be the lower end of the fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. But yeah, it's a good time. You turn your brain off for a little bit. It's fun. It's the over the top kind of action like that. Like I said, nothing. It's Statham kind of doing his thing. I think Statham now is kind of becoming the Liam Neeson in a way of like kind of doing these action movies are kind of like very kind of blended together. He's a very good actor too. He's really funny as well. He's great in movies like Spy. He's great in Snatch. So I kind of hope he kind of goes back to those kind of movies down the road, or if not this year, because I think he has lots to offer in terms of as a good actor, and he has a good comedic timing to him too. But I think he's kind of going down the Liam Neeson route of just like the generic action films that kind of just blend together. But yeah, solid 3 out of 5. Again, I love seeing David Ayer back doing a theatrical movie. Like I said, would love to see a David Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. Again, I'll be there for his next movie, whether it's on streaming or theatrical. I hope it's theatrical, but I'm just happy to see him back on the big screen. Alrighty, so next on the docket for this review roundup episode is the new, like I said, Emma Stone, Nathan Fielder, Benny Safdie TV show The Curse. This is produced by the Safdie brothers, who, if you know, Uncut Gems, Good Time, Heaven Knows Best. Oh, right, Heaven Knows Best, and Daddy Long Legs. I want to say it's Heaven Knows Best. Let's see. I actually love Good Time, and I love so Heaven Knows What. Sorry, Heaven Knows What. 2014. I love Good Time, and I love Uncut Gems. So I've been like kind of big fans of these guys since those two movies. Went back and watched the other movies. The movies are definitely full of anxiety. They're very anxiety driven, very just like tense and claustrophobic and cringe at times. Basically, the premise of The Curse is Nathan Fielder, Emma Stone play husband and wife. They're a couple out of Espanola, New Mexico, and they're shooting a pilot for their HGTV series. They gets picked up, and it's kind of like. And they're trying to bring good to this neighborhood, trying to like showcase the neighborhood, showcase this area of New Mexico, and it's very kind of like HGTV kind of thing. It's they're struggling to make their vision for like an eco-friendly reality in New Mexico a thing. They're trying to bring eco-friendly houses, smart houses to the community. But it's not really catching on, and it just kind of just goes a bit haywire at times. But if you're familiar with the Safdie brothers, their movies, the show feels a lot like Good Time and a bit of Uncut Gems. And if you're a Nathan Fielder fan, I'm not a big Nathan Fielder fan personally. Like, was it the Rehearsal, or what's the one from Comedy Central? But yeah, The Rehearsal, the one that everyone was talking about last year. Nathan For You. That's what Nathan For You, the Comedy Central show. The very kind of dry, kind of like obscure humor. I'm not really a fan of him personally, but if you like that kind of like weird, dry humor like that, the show is kind of like a mix of that with the Safdie brothers, Uncut Gems, Good Time kind of vibe. and it's very cringy. And also too, it's I'll start off with this. A lot of the characters are not likable at all. They're very full of themselves. They have big egos. They're very rude. They're very it's kind of like they're trying to like put their beliefs over people's lives and morals, stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, the show starts off really strong, but I kind of think it kind of dips in quality and dips in kind of in terms of like storytelling through the middle to the end. It's 9 episodes, I want to say. Oh, sorry, 10. It's 10 episodes, all streaming now on Paramount Plus and Showtime, and it I think has a great first 5 episodes. The last five, the back five, are kind of just like eh. 'Cause that are introduced don't go back to like they don't get back to it. They don't kind of like go kind of they don't kind of bring it up again. They don't kind of like dive deep into that. It's funny, but it's a very uncomfortable, cringy kind of humor. Um, and there's a lot of just like, wait, huh? Wait, what? And it's a lot of like head scratching. You're just kind of like, wait, how would that make sense? And wait, what? And the tension between Emma Stone and Fielder is kind of uncomfortable to watch at times. Cause you're just kind of like, because after the show gets picked up, it's very just kind of like this is that, whatever, and they're trying to like kind of do some unspeakable things to kind of get their show on air and popular and stuff like that. Also dealing with the kind of like struggles of their marriage and things going on, and it's a very odd show. And Benny Safdie plays the producer of the show, in a wig and a kind of goatee thing, and he's one of the producers and creators of the show as well. But there's a lot of uncut gems, Safdie brothers vibes, good time vibes in the show. And everyone was talking about this ending. Again, it's also non-spoiler. The ending really makes no sense. And again, as you probably heard me a thousand times on this show, is that I don't like shows or movies that have no real explanation on things. And stuff like a Nope or an Us, I can like interpret my own thing. I can appreciate that. But with this, the ending for this really makes no sense. And I'm just like, wait, what? And when I watched it, I was like, wait, huh? And it kind of frustrated me where I was like, as a viewer, I was like, why? Like, that really added nothing to the story or made any sense whatsoever. And a lot like a lot of the critics, other reviews were saying, oh, this is hilarious, this is so funny. I didn't think it was that funny. I thought the ending was very bizarre and very just like kind of pissed me off. I was like, this is how it ends, really? But yeah, there's a lot of it's a very dark show. People are saying this is a horror show. No, I would not say it. It's definitely like dark comedy thriller at times, because there are funny things that you can laugh at out of like cringe, out of like uncomfortableness. But it's definitely not a horror. Definitely not a horror. Definitely not a horror film, horror show. And what I like about this show is that similar to what the Safdies do in their movies, is that they kind of cast a lot of like just people off the street. Like, hey, you want to be in a show? You want to be in a movie? Come on in. Like they don't really seek out like actors or like trained actors or wannabe actors. It's kind of just like, hey, you want to be in a show? You want to be in a movie? Come on in. And I like that kind of, because it makes it really feel authentic and real to the show's environment, stuff like that. So I give them a lot of props for that. But to me, as someone who loves uncut gems, and I love Good Time, I appreciated the similar tones, but as a show, as a narrative for this entire 10 episodes of the season, it didn't really work for me in a way. I appreciated some things, but it just kind of felt it kind of felt like not finished at times. You're like, okay, you're introducing a lot of stuff, but where's the execution to that? Where's like kind of like the follow through? Where's the development of that? And kind of goes like, it is what it is. And also too, Emma Stone is not really likable. Nathan Fielder is not really likable. Benny Safdie is not likable. When you're trying to get invested in these characters that aren't likable, it makes it a hard time to kind of follow the show. Of like, I kind of see what happens next. I mean, I still kind of felt the interest to keep watching and like see how this kind of unfolds, but the execution of it all just kind of feels just really like, ugh, that's it. So because I was very hyped for it by the trailers and the teaser and what I was hearing about the premise, stuff like that. But to me, it felt really flat and very disappointing. So I would, out of 10, I would give this a 5 out of 10. I'll give it 4 or 5. Maybe I'll give it 5 out of 10 because as much as I love the guys involved, and I love Emma Stone, my favorite actors of all time, it just felt like a hodgepodge of different things. I didn't really know what it wanted to be, and just like how to really execute a good story or execute a good series. So, you know, we'll see. Again, it might grow on me, but after I finished it the other day, I was like, wow, it had a great setup. But man, after the first 5 episodes, I was kind of checking out. I was like, this is not holding my interest anymore. Just kind of felt really just weird and bizarre with no real explanation of what was going on or why this happened. So again, I could be the minority of this. So that I think people are like loving this show, but I just kind of felt just like fell flat at times. So. And also too, I'm not an Nathan Fielder fan in terms of humor, so that could have been it as well. But yeah, I'm getting 5 out of 10 seems kind of fair. Could change, could not, but I'm keeping it at 5. But yeah, guys. So we got a lot more to review on this show coming up. A lot more review roundup episodes, obviously as well. Yeah, but again, we want to hear from you guys. Do you see the Beekeeper? You guys like the Curse? Are you watching the Curse? Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the review section. Again, we want to hear from you all. Yeah, thank you all the nice comments we've gotten so far the past couple of weeks. I think once we figured out the Apple Podcast comment review bug, we're seeing a lot more comments, a lot more reviews. So again, it really warms our heart that all this feedback means a lot to us, and hearing that this is a fun show, you're liking the show, it means a lot to us. So thank you guys so much for listening, and taking the time to review and rate. It means the world to us. But like I said, guys, we'll have the full episode of the podcast next week when we all return. Again, hope you have a great weekend. Hope you're having a great January so far. Hope you're staying cool. Hope you're staying warm if you're in the colder areas of the country and the world. But yeah, thank you guys so much again for just always, showing us the support and love. We feel it and we value all of that. So thank you so much again, guys. And as always, we will see you at the movies.